Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. So I was talking to my dad a year ago. It was a while ago. And we were talking about axes and tomahawks, and we were looking at some of these axes and tools that I have. Sometimes it's just fun to play with cool axes, even if they're not the best tool for the job. My dad made a comment about the tomahawk from the movie The Patriot. That was such a cool tomahawk, and he would love to have one of those. I started looking at different tomahawks, and there's some different things out there. There are replica tomahawks that you'll see on Amazon and Etsy, and very shiny, lots of engraving. They range from $150 to $200. Most of those replicas are not functional. They're made in India. They don't actually look like the tomahawk that's in the movie. I started to get this idea in my head. This is a cold steel pipe hawk. I bought this on Amazon. It cost me $34.99. I started thinking, what if I took this and made it look like the one from the movie? So let me show you the process of getting this cold steel pipe hawk to look like this. So this cold steel pipe hawk is not exactly the same as the tomahawk from the movie The Patriot. I did some extensive research, and by extensive research, I mean I Googled things for like 10 minutes. The tomahawk used in The Patriot was modeled after some historical tomahawks. And I looked at that one, kind of looked at some pictures, decided to sort of do my own thing. First thing I did with this cold steel tomahawk was get rid of all of this coating on the blade. It's thick and it's ugly, so I took all that off of the wire wheel. I've used a flap disc before to kind of grind out a lot of the pits. For this one, I just used the wire wheel, and then I used a sander to smooth some of the rough spots out and just make it a little bit shinier. After I got all of the coating off, at least mostly off, there's still a little bit in some pits there, I wiped it down and started working on the handle. Now, the movie Tomahawk has this design on the handle, sort of vines, and then some little designs at the top and bottom. So I drew those on the handle, and I used a small ball burr on the Dremel and just sort of carved those out. This was a slow process, and I was wearing gloves because it was very cold in the garage. Once those were carved out, just sand it a little bit, clean up any rough edges, and I had that pattern, which is similar to the movie Tomahawk. Next, I did this pattern on the tomahawk head, and this pattern is similar to the historical tomahawk that it was based on. The movie Tomahawk does not have any engraving on the blade or on the head. The historical example does have some engraving on it. It has this band around the edge with small dots in it. I decided to do something like that. I had these super cheap diamond burrs that I bought for another project years ago. I had a whole bunch of them, so I was using those to try to just engrave this line in. These burrs were really cheap and they didn't work very well, and I burned through and melted through a whole bunch of them in the process of getting this engraved into this head. But eventually I made it all the way around, going very slow. After I was done with that, I used a slightly larger diamond burr and made the dots. Probably could have used the drill press to do this too, but this worked and went pretty quick. After I did all the engraving, I used some cold blue on the head just to make the engraved areas just stand out a little more. Once the bluing was done and I had rinsed it off and wiped it off, I used some sandpaper, a little wet sand here. I think it's like 200 grit or 220 or something. Sand it over to get the bluing off of the high spots, but I wanted to leave the low spots darker. The cold steel tomahawk handle is very long. It was way too long. It just felt really long. and it was too long to fit in the box I was sending to my dad. So I cut off about 4 inches there, and it felt much better. After I'd sanded the handle down, I took a torch and went really lightly over it and burned it. You gotta be really careful burning handles. If you get them too hot, they will crack. Really, I just wanted to make the engraving or the carving on the handle stand out a little more. Got a little bit carried away with the torch. One spot down here and had one kind of black burned spot, but other than that, everything turned out pretty well. After I had finished with the torch and the handle was still really hot, I put some axe wax on it. Warming the handle up with a heat gun or something is a really good idea if you're using wax, because then the wax melts into the handle. So this turned out really nice. And of course, you rub a little bit of the axe wax into the tomahawk head as well. It works fine at protecting the metal. And then I sharpened the tomahawk head. I wasn't trying to get it super sharp, but I wanted it to be sharp enough that if my dad wants to go and chop some branches, then it will work for chopping some branches. But it's definitely not like shaving sharp. Once everything was done, stuck it together. Now, this isn't an exact replica by any means, but I think this is a pretty cool tomahawk.
I'll take that as a compliment.
And the best part about this, it wasn't expensive. It didn't take a lot of tools. It's something that anybody could do with a little bit of time. I'm going to put this in a box and I'm going to send it to my dad. It's pretty cool, and I kind of feel like I need one of these. I'm probably gonna have to make one for myself. You guys let me know what you think of this project. I'm pretty happy with this, but I'd like to know what you guys think as well. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate every single one of you. Go and do some dad things, and I'll see you next time.